Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing alright. So today's video is all about my experience solo traveling to Utah for the first time and sharing with you guys some of the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way as well. So, if you are new here, hello, I am JoJo. I am a travel blogger and vlogger. I love to share my tips, tricks, and shared experience with you guys on travel. If you also subscribe to my mailing list, you'll also receive not only a freebie, but all of my other tips, tricks, and shared experience blog posts as well. So if you guys have been following me on Twitter and Instagram, which if you are not, I will put my username up here so that way you guys can follow me in real time and see what I'm getting myself into when I'm traveling. But if you follow me on both of those social media platforms, you know that I solo traveled to Utah back in April. It was an amazing experience. I absolutely loved it and I would definitely do it again. I can see myself going back to Utah either by myself or with friends and just exploring more of the national parks and other parks that I didn't get to visit while I was there. Because of my trip, I would like to share with you some tips and tricks if you are planning to travel to Utah, whether you're going solo or with someone else. My first tip is to definitely get to the parks before or after peak hours. Essentially by like 8-9 o'clock in the morning, most of the parks are filled up, and I would say that lasts up until about maybe to 3-4 o'clock, even 5 o'clock, depending on the park that you're going to. So if you can get up really early in the morning or just get there really late into the evening and you're okay with that, you definitely won't experience the hectic crowds like I did and just probably get a better chance of going on a trail. Because if you would have seen my vlogs at this point, like in Zion Park, I didn't even get to go on a trail because by the time I got there, there's just no parking anywhere. Like, I wouldn't think that it would fill up that quickly, but no, it did. So, learn from my mistakes. Definitely go before 8-9 a.m. and after like 3 to 5 o'clock in the evening. Second tip that you really should know is that when you're going into the national parks, they're not accepting cash, so you need to pay with like a debit or credit card. Now, if you would have watched my Utah solo trip research video, you would have seen that I said that I took out some cash so that way I can pay them in cash. So that way, you know, I wasn't relying so much on my cards. But when I got there, they're like, no, you need to pay like a debit or a credit card. And, you know, I was like, okay, fine, whatever, it is what it is. But I just want to make sure that you know that as well before you go there, so that way, you know, you have a credit card at least or a debit card to use when you go to the entrance to the national park to pay. When you go to the national parks, definitely bring a lot of snacks and water. It's very important to keep, you know, your body hydrated, to put some fuel into your body with those snacks. Because when you're out in the national parks, you're literally out in the national parks in the middle of nowhere, and if you want to get like anything like food or whatnot, you need to go out of the national parks, and it could take you like a few hours just to get through to the national park anyways. So definitely bring some snacks and water with you before you enter the park. Definitely bring some sunscreen if you're going on long trails, long hikes. For most of the day, you don't want to really get a sunburn, kind of like I did when I was in Jamaica. So definitely bring some sunscreen. Keep applying it every like couple of hours or so that way your skin is well protected from the sun, especially if you're going to be out in the desert during like the summer months. That sun is no joke. It's a scorcher, so definitely be prepared and bring a lot of sunscreen with you beforehand. Bring some sunglasses as well. It definitely was useful for me when I was out in the national parks. I had my sunglasses on so that way my eyes were also protected from the sun. You don't have to, but if you would like, definitely bring a hat. You know, it also helps with protecting your face from the sun exposure as well. If you bring like a lighter shade hat like I did, I usually bring like my pink and white one from Wildwood. It really helped in not only cooling off my head a little bit, but also protecting my face from the sun as well. But if you're not a hat person or anything like that, you do you. A sun visor or anything like that to really help protect your face from the sun will suffice. Bring a day backpack. pack. I don't know of too many people who go on the trails or hikes without a day backpack unless they're only going on a really short one for only like an hour at most. But if you are not doing that, I highly recommend you bring a day backpack. So when I went to Utah for the first time, I brought a foldable backpack, which acts as my day backpack for when I'm out and about, driving all day, going to the national parks or just wherever. And within that backpack, I kept some medicine, I had my hoodie, I had my raincoat, I had water, you know, besides like my camera equipment and like batteries and things like that, I had my snacks in there. You know, you can just pack a lot of things in there so that way you are prepared. The last thing you want to do is to be stuck out there in the middle of nowhere in the national park and just not have anything on you to help you with until you can get help. So that is something that I highly recommend to all of you guys, and I will link down below the foldable backpack that I use. I've used it quite a few times now. I love it. It's good quality. It's held up pretty good so far. It has like a little chest strap as well, which is really good, especially if you have a lot of things in your backpack. It takes some of that pressure off of your shoulders. And also, I don't think I showed you guys, it was my New Orleans vlog or something like that, my travel haul, but on that backpack it has a whistle as well, so if you are in trouble you can use that whistle to signal to someone like, yeah, hey, I'm here, I need help, please come to me. You know, so I really like that backpack. So no matter where you're going, even if you're just going to the beach that's like right on your front step, bring a day backpack. Wear comfy shoes for those long trails and hikes. I think a lot of people tend to forget this aspect and just underestimate the value of having really good quality shoes. I don't go on long hikes. If I go on a trail, it's usually a trail that will last a couple of hours for me. I've never been on hikes where I'm hiking like 30, 40, 50, 90 miles in a day. I don't have like hiking shoes in that regards, but I do have some really nice, good quality sneakers that are very cushioned and that can help when I'm on like some rocky surfaces and whatnot. But if you don't have, you know, those good sneakers, definitely look into getting some really good quality hiking shoes that can withstand the terrain when you're on those hikes. This is something that I think everyone should have, whether this is a pandemic or not. You really should have sanitizer, especially these hand sanitizer, these sanitizer wipes that I purchased from Target. They're like the little to-go packs. They're like non-wipes, but there are a few restrooms here and there at the national parks. However, they don't have like sinks where you can wash your hands with like soap and water. They do have like little like sanitizer in there, but you know, sometimes when you just get in there, it's just really gross looking. With those sanitizer wipes, I was able to kind of clean the surface of the toilet seat and then just use another wipe to clean my hands thoroughly in addition to the sanitizer. So I feel like that's just something really useful to have, especially when you're out there, or even if you're not using them in the bathroom, like if you were touching the rocks and whatever, but like you want to stop and just have like a little snack. It's important to sanitize your hands before you eat. So that's something that you should definitely take with you. Oh my god, this is a huge one. Definitely have a full tank of gas before you go into the park. Certain places in the United States you can get away with taking public transportation or Uber. I kid you not, when you're out there in Utah, like most of the state is just like mountains, cliffs, canyons, deserts. You really need a car to get around, especially if you're solo traveling the way that I did, where you're staying in one place but you're kind of traveling all over the state each day trying to get to different places. You really need a good quality car that, you know, can save on gas mileage, but definitely before you go into the parks, have that full tank of gas. The reason being is because when you're in the park, there are no gas stations. With Zion, there were a couple of gas stations in the town of Springdale, but when you were going through the park, there was nothing. You're basically in the wilderness, and the only way to get to another gas station is if you go back to the entrance in Springdale, or you keep going through the park until you get out the other side of the park. And when you get out to the other side of the park, there is like this little souvenir cafe place with like a little gas pump. And for Arches, in the Moab region of Utah, there were a few gas stations where you can get gas from, but when you were going through the park, I never made it to the end of Arches National Park, but I can assume if there was no other exit out of the side of the park, you would have had to go through the park again to get out. And the last thing you want to happen is to have like half a tank, a quarter tank of gas. You're driving for a few hours, but then you just get stuck in the middle of a national park and you have no way of getting gas. So it's very, very important to have a full tank of gas before you go into the park. I kind of mentioned this before with my other tip, but definitely make sure you have a vehicle, a car that gets really good gas mileage. The car that I got from the airport was a full-size SUV, and that gas mileage was shit. I basically would drive it for a few hours and I would have to refill on gas already. It was horrible. And when you would refill the tank, it would take like $50 to $60. That's a lot of money. If you can, get like a sedan and like a mid-sized SUV, something that's really good on gas mileage, so that way when you do have to, you know, fill up your tank, you're not spending a crap ton of money on gas. You know, but when I went to the airport, they only had minivans and mid-sized SUVs, so I, you know, tried my best with what was given to me. But at the end of the day, if you can, definitely have a car that's really good with gas mileage. Expect long wait times when you're going to these parks. If you go, like I mentioned in like my first tip of this video, try to go during the off-peak hours, so that way there aren't so many lines and crowds in the park. However, if you are going a little bit closer to those peak times, just know that you are going to wait a very long time in your car to get to that entrance. When I went to Arches National Park, I waited in my car for like an hour, and it was literally just like a 2-minute drive. Like when I went there around like 11:30 noon, there were no cars, but it literally took me like a minute or two to get from the entrance to the toll, to like the booth where you pay. When there's a lot of people, no, you'll be there for at least an hour. So definitely expect long wait times when you're going into these parks. So this tip deals with Zion National Park in particular, because when I was doing my research beforehand, and this was like December of 2020, I didn't see anywhere on the national park's website where they had paid shuttles. I knew about the free shuttles from the visitor center, but I think the paid shuttles were like a recently new thing that they started in February and March, and that was an error on my end. I never thought to go back during like a month or two before I went out there to check on this. So bad JoJo. But yeah, if you're going to Zion National Park, there are two ways of getting to the trails. One, like I mentioned, is the free visitor shuttle. So basically you go into the park and you park your car at the visitor center and you can catch a shuttle there and it'll take you to the trails. Or you can get a paid shuttle. The shuttle is only $1. However, you need to buy that shuttle ticket in advance. So if you know you're going to be at the park in like 2 weeks time, definitely purchase your ticket then. Or you can try getting your ticket at like 9 o'clock the day before you go to that park. Either way, I feel like, in my opinion, the earlier the better, because when I tried to get a paid shuttle ticket, it was booked out for like 2 weeks ahead of time. I couldn't get a ticket. And I went to Zion National Park on Friday, and I should have gotten like a ticket at like 9 o'clock on Thursday, but at that time I was on a plane, so I couldn't get a ticket into the park. so I missed out on that opportunity to get a shuttle. And when I got into the park, there was no parking in the visitor center or even in the little town of Springdale, so that way I can at least try to catch like a free visitor shuttle somewhere in the town. There's just nothing. So don't make the same mistake I did. I highly recommend you purchasing that paid shuttle beforehand or getting to the park or the town very, very early in the morning, so that way you can get on a free shuttle, because those shuttles take you to the trails. You can't just drive up to the trails like you could before. When I was doing my research, that was the thing that you did. You would go up to the trails, you park, and like the entrance to the trails, you park there and then you go on them. But now at Zion, you need a shuttle to take you to the trails. So, lesson learned. The next tip is to have some spare cash on you. I don't know about you guys, but when I travel, I book like my accommodation, my plane tickets, activities, most of everything on a credit card or a debit card beforehand, so that way I know the big stuff is taken care of. But when I get to a location, I don't like using or depending on my credit cards a lot, or my debit cards. I take out some spare cash, which I highly recommend to you guys as well. It could be as small or as big of amount as you need for your trip, but just having some spare cash on you just to make sure that, if anything were to happen and you can't use your credit card for whatever reason, at least you have some cash that you can pay for whatever it is that you have to pay for. The next tip is to talk to some locals about some recommendations. So when I got out of Zion National Park, I went to that little souvenir cafe place that I mentioned about earlier. And when I was in there, I was talking to the cashier, who happened to be a local in the area, for some other recommendations and places to visit. I didn't want to go all the way back through Zion National Park, so I figured I would just head out that way. And she gave me some cool recommendations. That's how I got to explore the coral pink sand dunes in Utah, and how I got to the Kanab area and found that cute little restaurant, that funky restaurant that I ate my dinner at. And I wouldn't have known about that area if I didn't talk to that local. So definitely get out of your comfort zone and just ask some locals, like, hey, what else is there to do in the area? Are there any cool places for me to see, or things to do? Because that's a great way to just explore any area that you're in. It's just by reaching out to the locals and getting their opinions and perspectives on what is really cool to see and do out there. So the next tip kind of coincides with the previous tip, but definitely explore lesser known areas and towns wherever it is that you're going. If you ask a local, they're going to give you some really unique and cool things to see and do in lesser known touristy areas. And I think it's such a cool way of exploring places and just broadening your horizon and seeing things that you may not have seen before had you gone to a tourist location. Of course, when you're out there, try, to eat at local cafes, local restaurants, family-owned restaurants, try to kind of stay away from the bigger chain names, essentially, because so many of these cute little places out there in Utah just have a whole lot of little local cafes, little restaurants that you probably won't see anywhere else. So I would definitely recommend trying the local cafes and local eateries, essentially. Another tip, that you can do when you are traveling in Utah is to download the Transit app. Basically, the Transit app is an app that details the lines, like the public transportation lines that are in your area. It doesn't really work if you're in a smaller area, but if you're in a bigger city, kind of like Salt Lake City or New Orleans, New York, that app works really well in those specific locations. If you're staying in Salt Lake City, you can download the Transit app and you can get all the lines that run within the city, and you can find directions in that app as well that'll help you take you from one place to the next. If you weren't on a time crunch like me and had time to just stay in the city, explore it, but you didn't want to spend money on a car rental or an Uber, that app is the way to go to help you with all of your public transportation needs. Another cool thing to know about Salt Lake City is that the downtown area area has a lot of shopping options. There's the City Creek Mall where you can go and do a lot of your shopping, and there's also a bunch of cool little like souvenir shops, boutiques, and things like that in the downtown Salt Lake City area where you can go and find some really cool and unique things. I went into this cute little souvenir shop and I got a lot of cool things to represent Salt Lake City to bring back, not only for myself but for my family. Bring some extra layers. I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I'm always cold. It could be summer, 110 degrees, I'm drenched in sweat. I put on the AC to cool down, but then 5 minutes later, I'm freaking cold. I need to turn that AC off. I always bring extra layers with me just in case, because I know myself, I get cold so easily, so I always have like a sweater, a hoodie, or something like that on me, so that way I can ensure that I stay nice and warm. Because of the time of year that I was traveling in Utah, the weather wasn't that bad. I didn't find myself really using those extra layers except in the airport and on the plane, because it's always freaking cold in there. But outside, like in the national parks and whatnot, it got very warm, like the high 70s and 80s the time that I was there, so I really didn't use that extra layer, but I was glad that I brought it with me, because you just never know. That is it for this video. I really hope you guys liked it. As always, please leave a like, comment down below. I love engaging with you guys in the comments. Hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications of when I upload new videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!